Hi, everyone. Welcome to another My Kids Locker COVID-19 Ed podcast episode. I'm so excited today to have Tim Stephenson from Langley, British Columbia, Canada, sharing a wonderful lesson about stars. Today, you'll get a special episode where you get to listen to him teach you about the Northern Hemisphere and the stars above. I hope that you enjoy this episode, and please, when you finish your creation, hashtag MyKidsLocker and hashtag COVID-19Ed. If you have any questions or want to reach out to Tim, you can find him on social media, or you can reach out to us at mykidslocker.com. He is our in-house astronomer, and we're so excited to have him today. I hope that you enjoy his lesson.
Hi everybody, my name is Tim Stephenson. I'm a teacher at Walnut Grove Secondary School in Langley, British Columbia, and I am so excited to be part of the COVID-19 Ed podcast. I am an astronomy teacher, and today I'm going to take some time to teach you some things about the stars. I think the stars are a great thing to look at this unusual time that we're all experiencing, a time when we're at home, we're socially distancing ourselves, and this can lead to some unusual feelings that we can kind of fix a little bit by spending some time looking at the stars. You know, when you think about the stars up in the sky at nighttime and they're shining bright, they have no idea that there's some unusual thing happening here on Earth with this virus, and they continue to shine. And this interesting continuation of shining bright. No matter what happens on Earth, the stars are a constant. They'll always be there. They'll rise in the east. They'll climb to their highest point in the sky through the night, and they'll set in the west, just as the sun does through the day. The stars are so plentiful. There's so many of them out there, and they're so far away. And they're so mysterious, and there's so many interesting things that you can think about just contemplating the magnitude of the heavens. You know, I got into astronomy as an interest area when I was only 8 years old. I remember way back in 1973, my parents decided that we were going to go to Florida for a family vacation during spring break, right around this time of year. I was in grade 3, and I remember my dad saying, well, if we can save up $500, we're going to take the whole family by car and trailer, camping trailer, and we're going to drive all the way from where I lived in southern Ontario to Florida, and we were going to go to Disney World. And when we got there, because we eventually did make the trip, we took a detour over to the Kennedy Space Center at Cape Canaveral on the east coast of Florida. And we took a tour around the rocket launch facility and the museums that were there. And I was so impressed by this. This was, of course, just a couple of years after the Apollo mission had been at its height, traveling to the moon 6 times, 6 different pairs of astronauts set foot on the moon, the last one being in 1972. The first, of course, was Neil Armstrong in 1969, and maybe you've heard that famous quote, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." And that was after the great era of the space race when President John F. Kennedy said, "We choose to go to the moon." And we choose to do this not because it's easy, but because it's hard. And I like to think that that's a great example for all of us, that, you know, we like to lean towards the things in life that are easy. And we like to do the easier things because simply they're easier. They take less energy, they take less initiative. But boy, I tell you, when you pick the things that are hard and you do those things, what a great feeling of accomplishment and satisfaction that you've got once you've done those things that initially you thought were going to be too hard. Well, I was always impressed by the stars and the planets and the moon, and as a result, I grew up to become a teacher, and the first chance I got, I wanted to teach other people about space. I wanted to share the things that I know and the things that I've learned, because everybody's sort of fascinated by the stars. Everybody loves to look at the stars and the shooting stars sometimes, and there's questions around the phases of the moon and when the planets will be visible, and of course, the big question of is there life out in space? And these are fascinating things to think about. I like to lie in a nice comfy chair at nighttime and stare up at the stars with a pair of binoculars, and just am amazed at how many stars there are. And really, we live in the Milky Way galaxy, and this is just one of just billions of other galaxies. And when we think about the Milky Way galaxy that we live in, the billions of stars that are within the galaxy, it's just a little bit what you might call mind-blowing. The stars are great distances away. In fact, most of the stars that you see at night are, on average, about 100 light years away. Some of them are closer and some of them are farther, but on average, they're about 100 light years up to maybe 1,000 light years. And of course, what that means is that the light that you're looking at, traveling at the speed of light, which is nature's ultimate speed limit, that light took 100 years or more just to get here. So you're actually seeing into the past when you look at the stars. You're seeing them as they were 100 years ago, or 500, or even 1,000 years ago. And people will ask, well, I wonder if those stars are still there, if the light I'm seeing is from such a long time ago. Well, yes, they're still there. They're still up in the sky and beyond the sky, really. And because the life of a star is far, far greater than a human lifespan. And so they're still there, and they're still shining. And we can still have this great opportunity to just enjoy the number of them and the constants of those stars. How would you like to learn how to find stars? What I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you how to draw a star map. And I can actually do this with you by describing to you the northern sky. So I'm going to start with the northern sky from where we live here in the Northern Hemisphere. Of course, the description I'm going to give would not work if you were living in the Southern Hemisphere, because the stars that I'm going to describe are only visible from those of us who live on the northern half of planet Earth. Of course, if you lived in the southern half, say if you were in Australia, for example, you would see a different group of stars than we would see, because you'd be looking towards a different part of the sky. But if you're living in the Northern Hemisphere, I could describe to you how to find some constellations and name some of the stars. And what I'd ask you to do at this point, perhaps what you'll need to do, is pause the podcast for a moment and get out a sheet of paper and get a pencil, and then follow along with my instructions. And I'm going to make for you or help you draw a star map that then you could take outside at nighttime and see if you can find these things. At a later time, I'll do another podcast where I'll describe the southern sky. And so, of course, you'll have to ask maybe your parents or someone who's helping you to, be sure which way is north. And once you've done that, then you'll be in great shape. Okay, now, do you have a piece of paper ready? Because if you do, I'm going to help you draw a star map for the northern sky as a person would see it coming from, looking from the northern hemisphere of Earth. So the first thing I'll ask you to do is turn your paper landscape. That means long ways across your table. And you'll draw a line maybe 1 centimeter up from the bottom of the page right across the whole width of the page. that will represent your horizon. So go ahead and draw that line right across the bottom of the page, about 1 centimeter up from the bottom. Now, in the middle of that line, below the line, write the letter N, because this will indicate to us that we're looking north. Okay, have you got the N written? Now, what you'll do is put your pinky finger on the N and then reach straight up the page with your index finger. And place your index finger on the page while your pinky finger is touching the N. At the point where your index finger is touching the paper, put a dot. This dot will represent the North Star, which we call Polaris. And Polaris is about 430 light years away. So when you see this star, and I'll ask that you'll go find it later tonight, you'll be looking at light from Polaris that is 430 years old. That's kind of an interesting thought, isn't it? Now, the next thing you'll draw on your map is the Big Dipper. Now, right now in March, the Big Dipper sits to the right of Polaris. Now, how would you draw the Big Dipper? Well, I'm going to let you decide how you want to draw the Big Dipper. You could draw it like a soup ladle, like a big spoon. You could just draw a big spoon just to the right, maybe 3 or 4 centimeters to the right of your dot that you called the North Star. And you can draw a spoon, you could draw a ladle. Now, if you want to get accurate, you could draw it upside down, because right now, the Big Dipper is sort of standing on its handle, and the dipping part of the Big Dipper is up towards the top. But you could just have some fun and use your imagination, and you could draw a spoon, and for fun, you could draw it kind of upside down so that when you go out to find it, you'll actually see that this is the case. The stars of the Big Dipper are, on average, 80 to 120 light years away. So the Big Dipper has light coming from it that is over 100 years old. Okay. Now, the next feature that we'll add onto star map is the Great W of Cassiopeia. Now, Cassiopeia, according to the mythology, was the queen of Ethiopia. And she's represented in the heavens by a W. Now, just as far to the left of the North Star as you went to the right with the Big Dipper, I want you to draw a W. But if you want to be accurate, you could draw the W kind of on its side, because right now you'll find that W kind of on its side with the pointy part of the W facing towards the left. Okay, so about 3 centimeters to the left of the dot that you called Polaris, or the North Star, you could write this W. You could put it straight up and down the way you normally write W's, or you could put it on its side with the pointy parts of the W pointing to the left. That's up to you. Cassiopeia has 5 main stars in it, and if you put a dot at each of the end points of the W, you would count 5 dots. And so you could add those dots into your W and see how they're arranged. And then when you go out tonight, you'll be able to look for that W. And you will see it. It's there. And that's the constellation Cassiopeia. Now, if you have room on your page, a little bit to the left and a little bit down from your W will be a big white dot that you can put in. Of course, it's hard to draw a white dot on a white piece of paper, so you can just write it or draw it in with your pencil. But this big dot is the planet Venus. So when you use your star map, you'll look to the left of your W, which is Cassiopeia, and you'll see the bright planet Venus. Now, an interesting thing about the planet is that in March of 2020, Venus will be in the sky to the left of your W, Cassiopeia. But in March of 2021, it won't be. And this is because the stars are much, much further away than the planets are. And so the stars remain in their formation that we call constellations year after year after year, and will always be that way. Whereas the planets, which are much closer, are orbiting the sun, and their motion will cause them to change their position in the sky night to night and month to month. Now, night to night, the positions change very, very small amounts, but certainly month to month and year to year, the positioning of the planets will change quite a bit. But you'll find that the constellations will always reappear in the same spot of the sky every year, every year. And that's the neat thing about the stars. We can always count on them to appear in the seasons that they do. I know that when we look at the stars at nighttime, you will get a sense of wonder and awe, and it makes a question come to mind perhaps, which is, I wonder if there's anybody else out there. And there was one of my favorite movies from about space. It came out a long time ago in 1997, and it was the movie called Contact. And there was a scene at the end of the movie that I found really interesting and very moving. And the scene is the main character, her name was Ellie Arroway, is working as an astronomer, and she has a group of grade 3 and grade 4 students come on a tour where she's doing her work, and one of them asks the question if she thinks that there's anybody else out there. And the response that she gives is very interesting, and I'm going to play that clip for you right now, and you can give it some thought and try to answer the question yourself, is there anybody else out there?
See over there, we're building 45 brand new dishes. And that means that when you put them together with all the different radio telescopes all over the world, then we get to hear farther into space than anybody's ever heard before. Yeah.
Are there other people out there in the universe?
That's a good question. What do you think? Huh?
I don't know.
It's a good answer. Skeptic, huh? Well, the most important thing is that you all keep searching for your own answers. I'll tell you one thing about the universe, though. The universe is a pretty big place. It's bigger than anything anyone has ever dreamed of before. So if it's just us, it seems like an awful waste of space. Right?
That's an interesting question, isn't it? Is there anybody else out there in the universe? And of course, we don't have that answer because there's been no proof come from any source. You know where we can find intelligent life? Right here on planet Earth. And you're one of them. And so now you've got a star map. So what I'd like you to do tonight is take your star map outside with your parent and somebody who can take care of you and make sure you're in a safe place, and use your map looking north and see if you can find the North Star, the Big Dipper, Cassiopeia, and Venus. And you're well on your way to becoming an amateur astronomer. And it's a lot of fun. And sometime soon I'll come back and I'll teach you how to find the stars and the constellations in the Southern Hemisphere. So until then, I hope you're having a great day and having a lot of fun looking at the stars. This is Tim Stephenson, your local astronomer, and it's been an enjoyable time teaching you about the stars. Bye for now.
Well, I hope that you enjoyed Tim's lesson. He is an amazing teacher. And for those that don't know, he did win the Prime Minister Award. So, with all that being said, I hope that you enjoyed our lesson today on stars, and he will be back again to teach more. So, until next time, I hope that you have less screens, you listen more, create more, and innovate more. To learn more about our COVID-19 Ed podcast, check out mykidslocker.com and reach out to me, your podcast host, Victoria Wolders. Until next time, have a wonderful, safe day.